All right. Well, this is Rick Barr from Barr26 Publishing, LLC. I'm speaking with Peggy McKenzie, author and Barr26 client. Hi there, Peggy.
Hi, how are you, Rick?
Doing great. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You're one of our earlier clients, and we've already done a lot of work with you. So we're going to talk about what you've done with us before and what's in the future.
Okay, perfect.
But I did want to find out first, how long have you actually been writing books?
I published I wrote my first book in 1994. And it promptly went under the bed along with probably another dozen. I finally, when I was able to get my kids raised and retire, I published my first book in 2016. So it's been this will be my 7th year.
So you say the mid 90s is when you started writing books, but of course there wasn't really a self-publishing entity. That really wasn't a thing yet.
Oh, no. There wasn't anything. I mean, you had to go through, my target at that point was Harlequin because that's what I read all the time. I was in that book a month or 6 books a month or whatever that was. And so I had, boxes and boxes and boxes of Harlequins. And so I thought, oh, well, I want to do this. This is awesome. And so I started the attempt. And then I realized, okay, this is not as easy to write as it is to read.
Yeah, I would imagine even if you had experience writing before, if you're tackling a new genre,
yeah,
a lot of research has to go into that. So have you pretty much been in this genre, the Harlequin and sweet romance, for the duration, or do you write in other genres?
Well, I have some other genres. I started with just trying to learn to write, through reading Harlequin. And then I got involved in a group called the Pioneer Hearts, which is sweet Western historical romance. And so that's kind of where I learned from other authors, how to do stuff. Because even though there's 1,000 workshops out there, there's really, it's as wide and long as, it is tall. And so it's just, that was my school, I guess that was where I went to school to learn to write.
Okay.
From those other authors. But yes, I do also write contemporary Western romance, but it is more of a steamy nature, where the historicals are sweet. And then I also have a thriller that I experimented with, a short story that is called The Hotel at the End of the Road. I know that's really a genius title, but it was kind of a collaboration with some other authors, and I just wanted to test my writing chops by writing something else I didn't even read. I don't read thrillers, so I just wanted to see what I could do with it. And
well, I'm sure that there's a certain point where you do need to kind of try new things, even if you're successful at something you're doing. You know what you're doing, but it can get a little boring maybe sometimes.
It is. I know, readers are always clamoring for that next one because that's what they read, that's what they like, that's what they're comfortable with. Some readers don't like that anxiety, anticipation that a different genre can bring. That's why they read what they do. But for the writer, I think it's important to dabble in other things because I really think it stretches your writing abilities. You just learn a little bit different pacing, a little bit, it's just different. And so it does help the writer, I think, become a little more 3-dimensional instead of, just one genre.
So I'm sure the more experience you get in different genres actually helps your original genre. Right. I mean, you
think it
kind of
does.
go back and you have some new tools, some new nuance here and there.
Yeah, I think it does. I think plus it gives you writers do get bored with writing, even though we love it. It's our passion. We couldn't breathe without it. We still get bored. You can always get too much of a good thing sometimes. And you the way we kind of break out of that is to write something different that gives us a different perspective and, a different momentum and a different direction. And sometimes we find things that we like to write that we didn't even know we were thinking about until we try something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to Sweet Romance, though, that's what we've started with our partnership with you, and particularly the Debutantes of Durango series. And I've narrated that, and we just got finished. The box set is out there. The first book is Debutante's Escape. And so can you kind of tell us about the genesis of that and your partnership with Sylvia McDaniel?
Right. Well, Sylvia and I were originally in a group of 6 authors, and we had talked about writing a collaborative box set. And so we kind of had all written them, and then some of the other authors got busy with other things, and they said, oh, yeah, we can't do that. So Sylvia and I have been friends for a long time. I want to say we met in 2016 at the Romance in Las Vegas. It's the big one that used to be there. I can't think of the name of it now.
Okay.
But we met there, and we've been friends ever since. And so we decided, she lives in Pagosa Springs, and at the time I lived in Durango, Colorado. And I said, well, let's change the name. Let's change the location of the book setting. And I said, let's just go ahead and put ours out as a box set. And she loved the idea. So we got together and kind of correlated the stories, similar but not really interconnected. And then, that's kind of how we got the box set going. The Debutante's Escape is kind of not really a mail order bride. It's more of a, the debutantes most people think of as Victorian, but, for us, the debutantes were just these daughters of wealthy industrial, giants, and they wanted a good match for their daughter, as all, good fathers do.
Mm-hmm.
But the daughters had different ideas about who they were going to marry and why they were going to marry. And so the Debutante's Escape is the first book in the series of 8. And that one is about a young lady who is being used by her father for basically a bartering tool. He wants to make a deal to improve his own life by trading his daughter off as a bride for a pawn. And she decides she's not willing to do that. So she hits up a friend that's been a lifelong friend that her father absolutely hates. What better way to get back at her dad than marrying the person that he hates? So that was kind of the start of the series, and then all the other ladies kind of fall in around that, but they're not necessarily interconnected.
Right. Now, so given that you weren't really interconnecting the characters between yours and Sylvia's books, were there any kind of challenges, I guess, in working together and making sure that at least your universe was in sync?
Right. Well, the characters know each other. My first one is a cousin. The next 2 in the series for me was The Secret and The Holiday, where they're all in the same family, as is the gift, the debutante's gift. They're all relatives. Sylvia's they're interconnected and they know each other. And I think 2 of hers are sisters. So even though the characters are interconnected, the stories just kind of touch with one another. One of the reasons for that is it's very difficult to keep track of 8 books and every nuance and detail. And so it's really hard to keep track of all that. And we just decided we would rather be more independent in our stories, but keep our characters connected.
Yeah, I'm sure that decision kind of helped productivity as well.
It did.
So these stories are all really fun. Yeah, they're mostly fun. There's some drama, but they also kind of each follow a pattern that in some ways can be predictable. But as you indicated, readers are kind of looking for that. You set up a structure for them they get comfortable with, and they love it. That's why they're coming back for the sequels.
That's right. That's right. We like to add different things. I mean, some mail order bride stories are just, this happens, this happens, this happens, and this happens. And Sylvia and I like to add a little bit of unexpected drama, like you said, because even though our readers know it's a romance, there's going to be a happily ever after, but we want to give them just a little bit of doubt of like, how can they really come back together after this? Yeah. And so that was kind of our, wish for our readers we want to entertain them still, but at the same time, we don't want to, give them anxiety by not providing them what they think they're getting.
Okay. So what are you working on now, and what are your future plans? Are you going to be branching out into different genres or sticking with what you know best?
Yes to both. I am finishing up my To Love a Lawman series. I published Texas Honor last year. Texas Promise comes out in February of this year. And then Texas Destiny will come out sometime towards the last part of this year. So that will be the end of my historical Westerns for a while. I have 4 contemporary Westerns that are coming out. The first one will come out this year. The other 3, I'm unclear about what that schedule is looking like. Because I want to start in a new genre, I may or may not use my name as the author, but I'm going to start a little bit in Victorian fantasy.
You're so prolific. How often do you publish a new book?
Well, I was publishing 8 a year up until this year. This year was a little different because I got sick in July, and it took them until September to figure out that I had an ulcer. And then I started traveling because I had all these things booked with NINC and, the romantic conference in San Diego. And then, it was just a lot of stuff going on. And so 2022 wasn't as prolific. I think I ended up with 3 books out. So for me, that's not very many.
Well, I'm thinking you probably felt like you had to do more conferences in 2022 just because the pandemic shut us all down promotion-wise for a couple of years.
Yes, that's true. I did several book signings, and I did also some just writers conference, trying to keep up with the industry. But yes, it was harder. I mean, there was a lot of people that came that didn't have the opportunity, and they were as glad to get out as I was as the author. But and then there's still a lot of people in my genre who tend to be more an older population that didn't want to get out at all because they're still worried. So it's kind of a mixed bag, really.
I'll bet. Yeah, we're still not quite 100%, are we?
No.
Can we talk real quickly about your other series that we're working on with you, the Brides of the Rio Grande?
Sure.
So what's the genesis of that, and where is it going to go?
Well, I started that. In fact, Grace was my first book in 2016. I used to live over by Creede, Colorado, and I just love the town. It's got history. It's just amazing. And so I felt like I needed to write a series based in that town. And so I did. And so the Brides of the Rio Grande kind of came from me just researching history about the town and the area. And I started with the initial 4 characters. And then when I finished the 4th one, people were clamoring for 2 other characters that had been all through the book, and they wanted their own story. So I obliged, and I gave them the last 2.
It's funny you obliged, but that's got to feel good when people ask you for that kind of stuff, because it's just an admiration for what you've created.
It is. It's very touching for me because I'm thinking, all these stories run around in my head, and my ability to get them out of my head and on the page, it's a skill that's developed over time. And when I hear someone say, I love your books, I love your characters, that really touches me, because the characters, it's like they're not real, but you bring them to life. And that's that's really what makes a writer's job so sweet.
Yeah. And you do have a great talent for it. So congratulations on all your success so far.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
Where can we find you? Give us a website, a couple social media accounts.
Well, I'm on Facebook, Peggy McKenzie Books. I'm on Twitter, Peggy McKenzie Books. Instagram, same thing. I've got a website. It's peggymckenzie.com. And you can also find all my audiobooks on Fill in the Blank.
Okay, great. Very consistent. That makes it easy.
Yeah.
Well, Peggy, thanks so much. This has been great. I think readers and listeners are going to get a lot out of this. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Rick. I really appreciate you.